The introduction of her essay about the novel of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen talks about whether or not this novel is in fact a romanticist novel. That's why our triggering question at the beginning is exactly about that, because that will be what the whole document will be focusing on. So we start out also in the introduction by stating that this novel has for long attracted readers all over the world, because clear evidence of this is that there have so far been 17 movie adaptations, and the most recent one happened in 2006, where Keira Knightley starred as the main character, Elizabeth Bennet, and Matthew Macfadyen also starred as Mr. Fitzwilliam Darcy, which will be Elizabeth Bennet's love interest throughout the film, and you can watch it on Netflix, in fact. So now, after the introduction, we'll start with the body of our essay, where the first thing we're gonna clear out and do some research about is whether or not this book is considered a novel. Because in order to prove whether it is a romanticist novel, we must start out first by defining why and if it is a novel. And after some research, we found out that the three main characteristics of a novel is that it must be written in prose as opposed to verse. And for example, like verse is the one that's typically used in poems. So it must be prose. And then number 2, it must be of great length, enough to not be considered short fiction. And number 3, it must be fictitious, or at least mostly, because non-fictitious books are not considered novels. So based on these criteria, we can come to the conclusion that the book is in fact a novel because number 1, like based on the first characteristic, we can say that it is written in prose and not verse. And then number 2, it is of considerable length. And number 3, it is a fictitious story. So now we can move on and see why this is a romanticist novel.
Just to give you an idea of what the story is about, it talks about a family of 5 sisters that are looking to get married. And the protagonist, that is Elizabeth, is looking for someone that she can make a connection and really fall in love. So in the time that passes, she knows this man called Darcy, and she really hates him by the way he is, like all his judgment and pride and anger and the way he treats other people. She really doesn't like that. So in the time that passes, they start to know each other and they start to fall in love, but she doesn't want to recognize it, and either him. So then other men start to declare his love to her, and she denies him because she doesn't want to be with someone that she doesn't know or that she is not happy with. So then Darcy declares his love to her, and she was really shocked. But at the end of the book, they end together, and they end like knowing that they are really soulmates and they are really happy together, either all the other things that they thought before they really know each other. One of the characteristics we think that is the most noticeable and important of this book is the poetic language, and we think this because we see it along all the story. So we also know that it is used like this type of language because of the time it was written, and also there were used a lot of other words that are now like a little difficult to pronounce or to understand, but they also give you a context where you can know that there were a lot of strong feelings and they were trying to transmit all that specific characteristics and emotions about each moment. So we think this is the most important because of that. And we also put the examples of the fragments of some parts of the story because we also like to explain more detailed why we think this.
Another key characteristic of romanticism are feelings and emotions. We can see them clearly all throughout the novel, but especially with Elizabeth and Darcy. Elizabeth disregarding her family wishes of marrying out of money and instead she wants a fulfilling relationship where she has actual feelings for. And Darcy declining his family wishes of an arranged marriage and instead wanting to marry Elizabeth out of love. Feelings and emotions are shown all throughout the novel. They are really important. They may be sadness, regret, happiness, or love, but they are all throughout the novel. We think that it's really important to mention them because this is an important characteristic of Romanticism, and this shows that this novel is in fact a Romanticism novel.
The true characteristic is the tragedy, and in this novel there are a lot of them. Tragedy is something that usually happens after the love ends, and there are a lot of tragedies talking about the men that were rejected. It's curious how the novel focuses on what happens next to Elizabeth and Darcy, but we never talk about what really happens is on the people like the cousin. In conclusion, after reading this magnificent novel, we can conclude that there's one feeling over all of them, and it's the love. Because no matter what happens to all the men that were rejected, they all found love at the end.
Well, we believe and think that this novel let you see the world in a different perspective and how the world was before and how it has changed in a lot of things, in the traditions, and in everything. Also, we understand that the love is not that easy and it not depends only if the two love each other. It depends in a lot of things that sometimes doesn't have to, but the people make you believe that. And sometimes the things don't go the way you want, but you have to keep going and keep trying the things you want. So, yes, the novel taught us and let us thinking many things.